Together, the United States and ASEAN have forged a strategic partnership guided by key principles. Including that ASEAN will remain central to peace, prosperity, and progress in the Asia-Pacific. The United States is now firmly part of the East Asia Summit, and we have worked to make that organization. The region's leading forum for dealing with political and security challenges, including maritime security. And we're guided by the shared vision of the region that we put forward at Sunnylands Open. Dynamic and competitive economies, mutual security and the peaceful resolution of disputes. And respect for human rights. In short, a region where all nations play by the same rules. That's a vision that we advanced here. We're stepping up our efforts to increase trade and investment. As part of the initiative I announced earlier this year, U.S.ASEAN Connect, we're doing more to connect our businesses and investors so that it is easier to start new ventures together. More to connect our entrepreneurs so we're encouraging innovation in what are increasingly digital economies. More to connect clean energy projects as we pursue a low-carbon future. All of which will also reinforce this region's continued economic integration through the ASEAN community. And given that 4 ASEAN nations are also part of the Trans-Pacific Partnership, I reiterated that I am determined to do everything I can to encourage the U.S. Congress to approve TPP before I leave office. With regard to security, our nations reaffirmed our commitment to a regional order where international rules and norms are upheld and where disagreements are resolved peacefully. there was recognition of the importance of the international arbitration ruling in July, which is legal and binding. And which clarified maritime claims by the Philippines and China in the South China Sea. We discussed the importance of claimants adhering to steps to which they've already agreed, including respecting international law. Not militarizing disputed areas and not occupying uninhabited islands, reefs and shoals. And I reiterated that the United States will stand with allies and partners in upholding fundamental interests. Among them the freedom of navigation and overflight. Lawful commerce that is not impeded, and peaceful resolution of disputes. The United States and ASEAN also continue to deepen our cooperation on transnational challenges. We discussed the importance of continuing to share information. To prevent terrorism and the flow of foreign fighters. Given the threat of climate change to all our nations, especially countries in this region. We agreed on the importance of bringing the Paris Agreement into force as soon as possible. We agreed to cooperation in the fight against human trafficking. Including sharing more information on smugglers, closer law enforcement cooperation and more support for victims. And at the East Asia Summit, our 18 nations expressed our grave concern about North Korea's provocative missile launches. Highlighted the threat posed by its nuclear and ballistic missile programs. And called on North Korea to uphold its international obligations. And, finally, I'm especially pleased that we continue to deepen the connections. Between the people of ASEAN and America, particularly our young people. like the inspiring young men and women that I met with at our town hall yesterday. Our Young Southeast Asian Leaders Initiative is now more than 100,000 strong. The Women's Leadership Academy that I announced yesterday will support women leaders in business. Government and civil society throughout ASEAN. And we're going to help increase language skills among students and teachers through our English for All program. In closing, I'm mindful that this is the last day of my last trip to this region as president. And when I think back to the time that I spent here as a boy, I can't help but be struck by the extraordinary progress that's been made across so much of the region in the decades since, even as there's still a lot of work to be done. And so it means a great deal to me, not only as president, but also personally. That over the past 8 years we've increased cooperation between ASEAN countries and the United States. It is unprecedented, the breadth and depth of our relationships. And I think it's one of the most successful parts of our rebalance policy. We've made it clear that the United States will continue to stand with the people of this region in advancing their security. Prosperity and dignity, including universal human rights. And I am very optimistic that the ties of friendship between our people as reflected by that. Roomful of young people that we saw yesterday will bring us even closer in the years to come. So, with that, I'm going to take a couple questions. And I will start with Kathleen Hennessy of AP. Question: Thanks very much, Mr. President. There's been a lot of talk back at home and here. About how you were received on this trip, your last to Asia. Donald Trump said you were humiliated. I suspect you think that was overblown, but President Obama, yes. Question, maybe you could talk about whether or not you think your reception here was at all limited to some of the or at all related to the limits and challenges of your Asia pivot policy. And while we're talking about legacy items, if I could just ask another quick one on Guantanamo Bay. You have 4 months left, 60 prisoners left. At this point, are you willing to acknowledge that the prison will be open by the time you leave office? President Obama, well, in terms of my reception here as far as I can tell has been terrific. I don't know if you've gone and talked to some people in Laos. They seem pretty happy about my visit. Everywhere we've gone. We've had a great reception just as earlier when we went to Vietnam we got a great reception. You will recall there were millions of people lining the streets. So if this theory about my reception and my rebalance policy is based on me going down the short stairs in China, yes, I think that is overblown. And I think that any reasonable person, certainly any person in the region, would be puzzled as to how this became somehow indicative of the work that we've done here. If you look at the remarks of leaders, if you look at the remarks of ordinary people, If you look at the concrete work that we've gotten done on everything from economic programs to development programs, to legacy of war issues, to promoting civil society and young people, the concern that I've heard is not that. What we've done hasn't been important and successful, the concern that I've heard is will it continue? And almost uniformly, the question I get from other leaders is, we hope that America's interest and presence and engagement is sustained. And my hope and expectation is that my successor will, in fact, sustain this kind of engagement, because there is a lot happening here. You've got countries here that are taking off. You've got one of the most dynamic and youngest populations in the world. This is where the action is going to be when it comes to commerce and trade. And ultimately creating US jobs by being able to sell to this market. And that's the only feedback that I've received. And that's not just based on what leaders tell me. If you read local newspapers or you talk to people, that's been the same commentary that we receive generally. With respect to Guantanamo, I am not ready to concede that it may still remain. Open because we're still working diligently to continue to shrink the population. I continue to believe that Guantanamo is a recruitment tool for terrorist organizations. That it clouds and sours some of the counter-terrorism cooperation that we need to engage in. And it's not necessary and it's hugely expensive for US taxpayers. Is there strong resistance in Congress? Absolutely. But as we continue to shrink the population to the point where we're looking at 40 or 50 people and are maintaining a multimillion-dollar operation to house these handfuls of individuals. I think the American people should be asking the question. Why are we spending this kind of money that could be spent on other things when it's not necessary for our safety and security? So there's no doubt that because of the politics in Congress right now, it is a tough road to hoe. But I expect to work really hard over the next 4 months, 5 months, 4.5 months. Margaret Brennan. Question, thank you, Mr. President. Can you tell us if last night Philippine President Duterte offered his apology to you? And if you said to him the US will continue to help the Philippines push back against China? And last night, sir, Donald Trump said Vladimir Putin has been more of a leader than you. And then he said you have reduced American generals to rubble. Do you care to defend your legacy? President Obama. Question, respond. President Obama, okay, respond. Got it? I did shake hands with President Duterte last night. It was not a long interaction. And what I indicated to him is that my team should be meeting with his and determine how we can move forward on a whole range of issues.